Do you love the Canon RF 50mm f1.2? Well, then you might be interested in the Mark II. It focuses faster, keeps point lights crisps wide open, and breathes less when you rack focus. And yes, the Mark I does breathe heavier than Jason in Friday the 13th. As I dig deeper into the recent Canon documentation and images, quickly tap that subscribe button. It helps more than updating the firmware on your camera 5 minutes before a wedding. Hi, I'm Simon. Today we're demystifying Canon's research behind the RF 50mm f1.2 Mark II, the concept behind Canon's patent filing JP 2025 118483. So you can decide whether this brand new Canon RF 50mm f1.2 version 2 is worth waiting for, or if the current one already meets your needs. Or perhaps, if you're like me, you've actually fallen for the 50mm f1.4. So let's first cover off all the benefits. Now, the first benefit that Canon reveals in their documentation is a snappier autofocus. Well, snappier autofocus starts and stops. Then there's the smoother tracking, and that tracking's supposed to work better on faces in bad light. Now, instead of having to shove a big front block, or I said block's the wrong word, lens group, what Canon's doing is moving a lighter middle group. So that essentially means, because glass is heavy, less mass and a quicker response. Now, this trend is what we're seeing with most new Canon lenses over the past, well, 3 to 5 years. The optical system consists of a positive front group, LF, a positive intermediate group, LM, and a negative rear group, LR. And when focusing from infinity to proximity, the intermediate lens group moves to the object side. The present invention provides an optical system, small and high optical performance, and can perform focusing at high speed. And the key to this benefit is fixing both the front and rear lens group. So the intermediate groups, well, they're lighter. So focus is not only smoother, but faster. Now, the second benefit, well, we can nail focus at f1.2, where the corner points, or the corner point lights, stay round instead of those elliptical or comet-shaped smears. Dots stay dots. The design reduces coma, so in-focus stars and streetlights look more circular rather than stretched or winged, and this is something we see in a lot of affordable glass. Being able to produce those point lights off towards the periphery, the edges, well, that's big value if you, of course, upgrade to this lens, because until we have it in hand, it's just theory. And the third benefit? Well, lens focus breathing and steadier bokeh transitions for hybrid shooters. Now, the Mark I, well, how should we say? It's pretty bad. For a lens at this price, I didn't expect this level of focus breathing. It really is something that you'd expect from a character like Jason in Friday the 13th. To reduce focus breathing, Canon constrains the power of the moving middle group versus the rear group and the spacing between the groups to keep the aberration stable while focusing. While the focal length of the intermediate group is FM and the latter group is FR, 0.01 is less than minus FM over FR, which is less than equal to 1.0. And 0.1 is less than equal to DF over F is less than equal to 1.0. And that's the complicated math behind how the 50mm f1.2 Mark II breathes when you're, well, pulling focus. There are many lens embodiments. This patent application, like many patent applications, includes many lens embodiments. I'm going to focus on the first example. It has a focal length of 48.5mm, an f-stop of 1.25, a half angle of 24.04 degrees, a total length of 113mm, and a back focus of 10.71. Now, across all the lens embodiments, all the examples in the patent application, it's a true normal of around 48 to 48.5mm and an f-stop of around f1.25. It's optimized for mirrorless cameras with a short back focus, not chasing performance and autofocus feel. Now, the marketing team always rounds these numbers off, and if you've been shooting for a while, well, then you know what I'm talking about. Now, this lens here, this is the 50mm f1.4. I love it a lot. It's It's actually not 50 millimeters. It's actually around 47 or 48 millimeters. I shoot a lot of product photography and videography, so the minimum focus distance is very important to me. Now the RF 50 millimeter f1.2, the Mark I, the one I'm shooting with right now, has a minimum focus distance of 40 centimeters, which is about 1.31 feet. Now, while the documentation doesn't print the minimum focus distance, well, we can get to it using some math. Now, the object distance divided by magnification, 0.159. Now, using thin lens approximations at 48.5 millimeters, object distance to the principal plane works out to be roughly, well, 35 centimeters. Add the image distance, and the sensor plane gives us a focusing distance of about, you ready for this? Drum roll, please. Around 41 centimeters, right where the current Mark I sits at 40 centimeters or 1.31 feet. So, if you want a high quality 50 millimeter with a shorter, not smoother, minimum focus distance, well, then go with a 50 millimeter f1.4. So the minimum focus distance doesn't really change between the 50 millimeter f1.2, the Mark I, and the Mark II. But expect faster autofocus, cleaner wide open corners with those single points of light not being, or even the bokeh not being elliptical or distorted, but more spherical. And of course, calmer breathing, and hopefully no breathing at all, but based on a patent application, I can't promise there's going to be no breathing. Now, the patent application doesn't promise a smaller barrel. If the 50 millimeter f1.2 Mark II lands near the current size but feels quicker and looks cleaner at f1.2, well, that's a real upgrade for weddings, events, some astro work, and night portraits. And while the patent application gave multiple lens embodiments, they were all variants of the 50 millimeter f1.2. The 50 millimeter is one of the most popular primes ever. I mean, I've got 3 of them. The cheap nifty 50, then I've got the 50 millimeter f1.4, and I'm shooting with the 50 millimeter f1.2. I guess we're going back about 20 years. I don't know the rough amount, but it's closer to 20 than it is 30. And I got my first pro-level 50 millimeter, the Canon EF 50 millimeter f1.2. I got it because, well, I was at the photography store and my wife says, "You've got a good camera, why don't you just get this?" And then the salesperson was telling us, yes, the 50 millimeter is great for portraits, a lot of people use it. Well, I had an APS-C camera, so 50 millimeters is more like 85 millimeters. But I bought it nonetheless. I didn't really think of that at the moment, and it was a nice lens, and I used it for many years, and not an awful lot until I got the Canon EOS R5. And when I started this channel, the 50 millimeter f1.2, along with the EF to RF adapter, which is right here, basically produced videos on this channel for a good year or 2 years. I'm not exactly sure the right amount. Then I thought, should I get the 50 millimeter f1.2, the RF version? I read a lot of reviews. From a still standpoint, there was definitely some improvements in sharpness. But for what I was shooting, it wasn't that big of a deal. Again, I shoot mostly video. So I was more interested in the quietness of the operation. And unfortunately, the 50 millimeter f1.2, even with a mounted shotgun mic, kind of sounds like a squirrel chewing on a nut. It's rather irritating, and it's not something you can get rid of. In fact, the 50 millimeter f1.2, the EF version, was quieter. I would have been better off sticking with that. But nonetheless, I'd made my deal. I'd sold the EF version for, what was it, $1,000? So I made enough money to cover off at least half the cost of the RF. No, about a third of the cost of the RF version. Who's kidding who? I like the EF version. It was a great lens. I like the RF version. It's a terrific lens. But I really fell in love with the 50 millimeter f1.4. One of the keys, and I kind of teased on this a little earlier on, I do a lot of product photography and videography because I often review products here. And quite often I try to get down pretty close. The 50 millimeter f1.2 always produced blurry results because I was always trying to push in closer than it would let me. It was really annoying. With a 50 millimeter f1.4, I didn't have that problem. So for photography, it was terrific. Now the 50 millimeter f1.2, if you look at the numbers, you think f1.2, f1.4, it's not that big of a deal. If you actually hold the lenses in your hand, you'll notice that this one, the 1.4, is significantly lighter than the 1.2 that I'm shooting with. It's got better glass. The sharpness towards the edges is going to be better. If getting that really soft bokeh, if shooting f1.2 is something that matters to you, you're going to notice it. If you're shooting at night or in low light situations, that f1.2, that extra stop or third of a stop, is going to make a difference, not a distance. It's certainly going to make a difference. Now you might wonder, well, you've got 3 of them, so are they just props or do I use them? Well, this has become a prop. The Nifty 50, it was only a couple of $100, so I thought, well, I'll just get it, and if I use it, I use it, and I don't. I really don't. The 2 lenses I use all the time. For this channel, almost every single video that I shoot in Studio A, this studio here, is shot with a 50mm f1.2. Does a great job. I leave it here, mounted to the R5. They don't move. They stay here all the time. The 1.4, that gets mounted to the R5 Mark II. I take it with me everywhere, do run and gun, except in situations where the 100 to 500 come in, or the 24 to 105. I really do love this lens. Now it's also got that aperture ring, which is nice. It's lighter. If you're doing a lot of run and gun and you've got camera body strapped to your neck, the weight of this thing really comes in. And I'd say in most of the situations that I was shooting in, especially doing a lot of video, I prefer the f1.4 to the f1.2. So all I want to say is, share some of your stories down below, because a lot of people who are new to photography or videography that watch videos like this, they try to understand, well, okay, I get that 50 is good for portraits and other scenarios, but I really don't understand how a 1.2 and a 1.4 makes a difference, or the difference in the glass. If you can explain to others why you choose which lens you do, why you love that lens, and even if it's an old lens that you've got adapted to your camera, people really like to do that. They like to find out more, and that's one great thing about this channel, is I try to encourage the community to provide more feedback in the comment section down below, instead of just saying great video or terrible video, or I don't like the new audio effects you used in your previous video kind of thing. Give me more details, and it also, because it's not just feedback to me, it's what other people are reading, and sometimes people don't comment, they just read, and it really helps. And if this patent application kind of hit the spot, then also subscribe to this channel. Now, one thing I did look at before I went ahead and recorded this video, I wanted to see if there were any sales on right now. And as far as any of the new glass, the Nifty 50, the EF 50mm f1.2, the RF 50mm f1.2, none of them are on sale. But I went ahead and checked to see the used price of these lenses on B&H. B&H does a pretty good job of classifying their lenses. So if you want to save $26 and get a used version of the Nifty 50, the RF version, the f1.8, you can save $26.50. It's $192.50, and it's got a 9+ rating. So little to no signs of wear. However, this often goes on sale. We're getting ready to come up to Black Friday in a couple of months. Hard to believe I just said a couple of months for Black Friday. You'll probably see it go on sale for at least that much, so it's not really worth getting that, saving $25. But they do have a used Canon RF 50mm f1.2, the one I'm shooting with, and you can save $300.05. I don't know why the 5 cents. It's $21.98.95, so I guess they were looking for $2,200, and I don't know, but $21.98.95, that's a $300 savings, and then that's it for used versions. And there's a reason for that. It's a very, very popular lens. I shouldn't have sold my EF version. I should have kept it, but I've been finding a used one ever since, and I can't find one for the same price I sold it for. The Nifty 50, it's a great lens. And I'll tell you why I like it. I live in a relatively decent-sized city, so there's about 7 million that way to the south of me. So even when you're on the edge of the country, you can always see houses, telephone poles, hydro poles, something. What I like about the 50mm, it allows me to go out into the marshes and into the parks, and to be able to narrow down the focus to where, when I present to my audience, it looks like, and I can sell them that I'm in the northern hinterland of Canada, instead of just being in a park for a watershed area or something like that, right? So The 50 millimeter really kind of narrows it down. It gives you a wide enough feel, but it's also able to narrow things down. And I just love the 50 millimeter. Now, sometimes I'm out with a 24 to 105, but I think of the 24 to 105, which is on my camera upstairs. I don't think of it as a zoom lens. I think of it as, okay, I want to shoot at 50 millimeters right now. So I make sure it's at 50. And if I don't have everything framed properly, I'll adjust my distance. Or I think, you know what, I want to shoot as a 35 millimeter now, or a 70, or an 85 millimeter. If you're new to photography or videography and you think, hey, I'm going to start off with a 24 to 105 on a full frame camera, or you're going to start off with something like a 17 or 18 to 50, 88, 135, don't just sit there with a camera and do this. What you want to do is think, okay, I want to try shooting at 50 and just stay at 50. And if things aren't properly framed, try move up or back. And then if you find that, you know, 50 isn't working, okay, try 35. But again, don't just zoom around, because what you're going to find is shooting at a certain focal range, like 50 millimeters, is going to change things. It's going to change the depth of field based on what you've got the f-stop at. The reason I say this is, as you use a zoom lens, like a 24 to 105, a 24 to 70, or those other APS-C focal ranges, they're really going to help you understand which which prime is right for you. And if you find yourself using the 50 millimeter a lot like me, then you're going ahead and buying a 50 millimeter, an f1.2 or an f1.4, or even an f1.8, you're going to find it's the right decision. Because when you're out with your zoom, guess what you're always shooting with, right? Anyhow, long and short of it, thank you very much for watching this video. If you're interested in purchasing anything I talked about in this video, or anything from Adorama or B&H, please consider using my product links down below, because this channel is very much viewer supported. I don't use any sponsorships. I try to keep as few ads in here as possible. If you're watching YouTube for free, obviously you're going to get their ads. But if you happen to pay YouTube to have an ad-free experience watching this channel, that's what you're going to get. So again, if you're interested in purchasing through B&H, Adorama, Walmart, or Amazon.com using my links down below, really does help support this channel. And thank you if you've already done that. It's very much appreciated. But that's it for now. Have yourself a great day, a great week, and we'll see you again soon.